The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're coming to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for Autism Live. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. Gosh, you know, I'm just grinning ear to ear this morning because I don't know if the rest of you saw it, but last night on America's Got Talent, Cody Lee, I already got goosebumps just as I'm saying it. Cody Lee won, but it wasn't even so much about that. For those of you who didn't get a chance to watch it, go watch it because the whole thing, and I will be honest that I saw when he started on the show and I caught a couple of things, but life has been busy, so I haven't had a lot of time to watch a lot of what was happening this season on America's Got Talent. But we have seen in the past that often people who are, you know, differently abled and have had significant challenges in their life come to that show and say, here's an opportunity for me to be seen and sort of bypass like all this other stuff that I've really had a hard time functioning through, right? So this is not the first time that they've had differently abled people in the finale, but I don't know, there was just something different. And I tuned in last night in the last half hour and was watching the different acts, and everybody has a story, right? But every time Cody Lee stepped on the stage, the audience went crazy. They just went crazy and cheered for him. And every time he heard it, and people were chanting Cody, and every time, you know, he had a physical reaction to it, and it was just super sweet. But then it got down to the final two, and you had Cody Lee, who is a singer with autism, who is also blind, right? Versus a comedian who has a genetic abnormality so that his hands are differently shaped, and his arms are differently shaped. And I was like, look at that. Look at that, what America has said about who they think is the most talented. And it choked me up to see that those were the two finalists. It just, I don't know, there was something about it that made me go, look at how much is right. Because it's so easy sometimes to look at how completely on opposite spectrums everybody is right now and how much, you know, nobody's in agreement with everybody. But there was America speaking really loudly and going, out of this group of people that were so talented and everybody that had stories, we think that these are the two most talented people. And they're people who have been largely marginalized in their lives. It just... it caught me up. I got very emotional. I'm emotional now. I don't know where my tissues are. And then Cody Lee won. And I think it was pretty evident to everybody that he was going to win because the audience was chanting his name. He has taken the country and the world by storm. This young man who presents one way and that the world looks at and goes, you must be this. And then he sits down at a piano or walks up to a microphone and he speaks, and it's 68 kinds of incredible. Traven's bringing me tissues. How fabulous is Traven? Thank you. You just saw Traven's arm for the first time. Ladies and gentlemen, Traven's arm. It was just something really worth watching. And so I hope that you'll take a second and watch. And by the way, you know, the comedian, and I wish I could remember what his name is, hilarious. And also so super excited, and I'm sure thrilled to be runner-up to Cody Lee. But it just gives me so much hope if America can get that right, if we can all see that together. Doesn't that give you all hope for your kiddos and for what the future holds? It just, right? having a hot flash and goosebumps at the same time and crying like a baby. It's okay. Like, I think it's always okay for us to have these emotions, right? Especially when it's about hope. Man, let's have some hope today, right? Let's just spread it everywhere and let's choose to see what's right in the world today. And that was a really good, millions of people voted. And I'm sure that they had, other people that they liked and that their story sang to them, but these are the people that they chose to get to the finals. Just makes my heart beat happier. So anyway, check that out. But I should tell you that there are lots of ways you can write into us right now. If you have thoughts and feelings about this or other things, we are here. We are interactive. We want to hear everything from you, even if you totally. I love it when you write it and disagree with me. That's totally okay. Don't be afraid to do that. So Traven's showing you, fabulous Traven is showing you the different ways that you can connect with us. And while he does that, I want to remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. And that's just one more way that you can connect with us. It's a little bit more organized. And so I encourage you to go to that page. And we have things organized in lots of different categories. So if there's a class of videos that we do that you really like you really like the Temple Grandin videos, or you really like the Ask Dr. Doreen, or you really like the Ask an Autism Expert where you get a whole bunch of people's opinions on things, or you really like the recipes, right? There are playlists at the top that sort of separate those bigger categories out so that you can click on them and watch the videos in that category. Then you can watch the most recent things. And then there are, other things at the bottom. But there's always the search tab, and you can search for any kind of a topic. If you specifically want to search among the Ask Dr. Doreen, go up to the topics at the top of the page, click on that and search by text. And you can, go through the alphabet. If you want to know about toilet training, you go to the T and you put in toilet training, and it'll show you all of the actual questions she answered, because everybody's not going to ask the same toileting question, right? The question for a 4-year-old is going to be different than for a 14-year-old, right? Or you're only having problems with number 2, right? Not to go too much there. But you know what I'm saying? You can see the questions, and if you click on it, it takes you directly to that. Over 6 years of videos. It's a pretty amazing thing. So there's all of that. But don't forget that, excuse me, at the bottom is if you want to communicate with us, what we've made the live feature now, to leave a comment. It's free, it's anonymous. And then you and I can have a conversation, and more important than that, you can have a conversation with our experts in real time. We've got a really amazing show for you today, but I want to start with, on Thursday, we do like to start the show with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what in the nani are the experts talking about. And what does this have to do with me? And do I really have to know what this means, right? Because our days are full, we're tired, our tuchuses are dragging. Do I really have to learn a whole other language? I got to be honest with you, you don't have to learn the whole language, but if we learn these terms a little bit at a time, they will help you. They absolutely will help you to understand what the experts are saying, to understand what the important things are, and what you should be working for. Now, last week, you guys asked, what's the hallmark of a good ABA program? And if you haven't heard Dr. Grampiche's response to that, please go back and watch that. That was a week ago from yesterday, because she gave such a great answer. And then I sort of said, one of the things that I always tell parents is that when you're sitting down and talking with your ABA provider and they're saying, well, the next thing that we're going to teach your child is blah, 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 right? And you go, oh, that's wonderful, that's great. And you ask whatever questions, and then say to them, what's your plan for generalization? And if there's any let me find that for you here. Well, we'll figure that out when that's a hallmark of a bad ABA program, that's a big, big, big red flag. So I thought it would be worthwhile, since it's that big of a deal, maybe we should go back and do generalization today. So here's our term for today, generalization. Let's look at our actual definition first, and if possible, let's make fun of it, because that's a fun thing to do. So generalization, the occurrence of relevant behavior under different non-training conditions, i.e. across subjects, settings, people, behaviors, and/or time, without the scheduling of the same events in those conditions. Ladies and gentlemen, the very reason why we make fun of definitions. I know if you're watching and you're a BCBA, that makes great sense to you because you already know the definition. But if you don't know the definition of generalization and you look that up on the internet or in a book, basically all you've done is waste some time. It's a big, huh? What does that even mean? I don't even know, and I know what generalization is, right? Because it's like, okay, I can follow this, I know what these words are, but what does it add up to? Shmeh, right? So let's see if we can't unpack this a little bit. Let's go on to our working definition. Hopefully we won't make the experts break out into hives. Okay, generalization is being able to apply what has been learned in new ways or situations that were never taught. Okay, you know, like in My Fair Lady, when they finally get to the point where they say, by George, I think she's got it, right? It's kind of that. So imagine that, you know, all the things that you want to teach a child, neurotypical or otherwise. Let's just talk about the color red. If you're going to teach the color red, you can't possibly teach red in all of the ways that it shows up, right? You can't. It's not, you would spend the rest of your life teaching red and all the different gradations of red. It would take forever. And you really don't want to spend your life working on red, teaching somebody red, because there's other things to learn. So basically we want to teach red in a way that allows the person to be able to know what red is in all the different ways that red is read, no matter where they are, no matter who they're with, no matter what time of day it is, no matter if it's two-dimensional or three-dimensional or a four-dimensional, right? And that's generalization. So when you start teaching red, you're going to maybe teach it on, like, you know, there's a square that's on a piece of paper and you go, you know, that's red. And then maybe you take it to a 3D crayon and you know, this obviously is not red, but if it was, we would, you know, teach that this is red. And then we would teach different, you know, a couple of different things, but we're trying to get to the point where the individual understands red in general. That's why it's generalization. They're able to, I don't have to teach them that that car is red, right? Because I taught them that the crayon was red and I taught them that the apple was red. And so they put all that together and they go, that car is red. Ding, 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 ding. And maybe that car is brick red, but they understand that it's red. Or maybe the car is cherry red and they understand that the car is red. So, there's a couple of things with generalization that I think are like the big examples that we all understand, and one is toilet training, because this is where it all gets real, right? If you're going to teach your child toilet training, you want them to not just go to the bathroom in your potty. And we all know somebody whose child can only do that, right? They go on vacation and the child can't have a bowel movement the whole time because they aren't comfortable pooping in the hotel toilet. That's a real issue. And if we start teaching toilet training in the very first day and we go, okay, we're going to teach toilet training and we're going to, you know, teach it till at a certain point where they've got it in this toilet, but then we're very quickly going to take them to another toilet. And then we're very quickly going to take them to a toilet that, you know, they've never been to before. And then we're going to take them to another one, because what happens is the child learns, oh, here are the things that toilets have in common, and the bathroom may look different, and, you know, this toilet seat has a part cut out of it. Oh, it's still a toilet. It's still a place where I can do my business. This toilet has a lever that I push down. This one has one that's pushed down, but it's a totally different thing. This one has a button. You know, I always bring up the O'Hare Airport bathrooms. Have you seen those where they wrap the toilet, like you come in and the first thing it does is the little machine wraps the toilet seat for you? Oh, yeah, that's a whole other thing, right? But if a child understands this is a toilet, this is a toilet, this is a toilet, then they can use a toilet wherever they are. They're going to notice the differences, but they're still going to be able to do their business. And believe me, if you have a child that you're toilet training, you want to make sure that they get to generalization so that when you're at Target and they have to go to the bathroom, that you're not changing a whole full set of clothes and working backwards. They can go to the bathroom in the Target bathroom. They can go in the Walmart bathroom. They can go in the Trader Joe's bathroom. And they can do it at Aunt Betty's, and they can do it at home, upstairs or downstairs. It becomes a lifestyle thing that for them to be able to generalize toilets, right? So we all get that. But then here's another example for you. When you learned how to drive, I remember when my mother taught me how to drive, she didn't want me to just be able to drive in our neighborhood or in our little town. My mother wanted me to be able to drive on every road that there is, and she couldn't possibly train me in how to drive on every single road. So she tried to teach me the rules of the road, and she gave me examples, but she tried to give me a big enough base of a knowledge so that I would be able to drive wherever I was. Even if I go to Europe and I have to drive on the opposite side of the street, that I will have enough knowledge that I will know how to do that. That's trying to teach for generalization. And if you don't plan for it from the beginning, then you're not a good teacher. So that's why I was saying to you guys last week, ask the question. So what's our plan from generalization? Because with our kiddos with autism, where we are trying to be very targeted and teach things and get them caught up, we don't have time to do bad teaching. Right? And we have to know where we're going. Yeah, we're going to do course corrections all along the way, but shouldn't we know what the destination is, right? And the destination is generalization. So if you haven't planned for that as you're starting the lesson, then you are not a good teacher. I'm just going to call people out right here, right now. So ask the question and see the response. Good ABA provider is like, yes, our plan for generalization is because they already know it. And if they don't, if they have to shuffle the papers and go, you know what, I know I have that here somewhere. No. That's not a good ABA provider. So the plan for generalization, and you should know what that is, right? As the parent or the caregiver, you should know what that plan is and know that there is a plan for generalization. So ask those questions, and generalization is where it's at. It is when you get to generalization, it's that moment where you go, by George, I think he or she has got it, right? It's when your kid learns something completely where they put A and B together and you didn't have to teach C, but they got it. You'll be excited. You'll recognize it when you see it. It's where we're always trying to get to. So it's big, it's important. Now you know. You wouldn't have known from that definition, would you? Just say it. All right. We have to keep a sense of humor about these things. Let's move on to our question of the day. I used to worry that the BCBAs were going to get offended when we would make fun of the actual definitions. And all I hear is from students who tell us that they study using our jargon. That makes me happy. Okay, so our question of the day, what's the hardest thing you've ever had to do? Boy, I was in a conversation with a parent last night and just, talking about what the tough choices are in parenthood and deciding, whether to do one thing or another, deciding medication for your child. These things are all really, really hard, and we can never poo-poo that. But what's the hardest thing that you've ever had to do? I certainly think for me, losing both of my parents is right there in the category of hardest things to do. But I will say this, that there was an expectation that at some point in my life, there was a natural course of events. And, I sort of expected that someday I would lose my parents. It was still hard. I never expected that I was going to have a child who didn't speak. That just wasn't part of my, we'll check that box, right? And I will say that at least the first 3 years of therapy, I frequently say it was the hardest thing. I think it's really important to note that sometimes when things are hard, it's because they're worthwhile. Some things are hard and because they are just hard and it's just a course of life, like losing my parents. But it was really hard to start therapy and to learn the therapy and to learn what I had to do. And it was hard to rearrange our whole schedule and our lives and put other things on hold that we had planned to do. And I was resentful. I was resentful that there were other people who were going to Gymboree and we weren't there with them. Every now and then I want to be honest with you guys because I know that some of you are going through that. It was hard, but I also, when I speak, say that the most worthwhile thing I have ever done or ever will do in my life was making sure that my son got the therapy that he needed and the amount that he needed. That's really important. The amount is super important. And if there's anybody who's watching who thinks, well, now with insurance, that's just going to happen and we don't have to fight for it anymore, I'm sending you an air hug, because I got to tell you that the reality is vastly different. As parents, we need to step it up and we need to fight for our children to get their full prescription, whatever that means. If you are listening to me right now, I'm telling you, it's the single most worthwhile thing I have ever done in my life or ever will do in my life. Yes, hard. I do think the hardest thing. You know why? You know why part of it was so hard? Part of it was because I didn't expect that I was going to have to do it. And then when I saw, oh, this is my life, this is what I have to do, I didn't think I was going to have to fight people who are supposed to be on the good guy side. I didn't think, I'm an ex-teacher, I love teachers. I didn't think I was going to have to fight with my son's school to have them do right by him. But let's all hold hands and know that that is often, not just sometimes, often what we have to do. And people who are looking you in the eye saying, I care about your child and I want to do what's best for your child. But by the way, I'm not going to give you the thing that I know that he needs. No, that's hard. That's really stinking hard. But that's why we're here. We hold hands. We can do this together. Si se puede. It's worth it. Okay, but write in and tell us what's the hardest thing. Let's pop that pimple and get it out and talk about it. I think when you drag things into the light, they're easier. I do. And when you know you're not alone, it's easier. And you are not alone. Okay, let's move on, though, to the topic of the day, the topic of the week. If you guys watched on Monday, you may already know this. But our topic this week, and I think it's important to go with all the things that we're talking about, it's important to keep our eyes on the prize. There's a whole lot of side stuff that's going to rear its head and try to get you off topic, off mission, right? We all experience this every day. Oh my gosh, right? I woke up this morning and I was like, I'm going to exercise and eat right today, right? And I have not exercised and I haven't eaten horribly, but I'm not getting any gold stars for what I ate this morning. You know what I'm saying? That's one thing, right? But there's everything in our lives, all the things that we want to accomplish, all the things that we want to do. And when we talk about autism and the goals that you guys have, whether you're the person on the spectrum or it's your kiddo that's on the spectrum or your student that's on the spectrum, there's a whole lot of things that will come along and try to intervene from getting you to do that. And sometimes you got to stop and take care of business and say no, and you have to fight something, right? And other times you just got to walk past crazy and you got to say, I'm sorry, I don't know what you have going over here, but I'm doing this really important thing over here. We have to keep our eyes on the prize. I want you to keep your eyes on the prize. What is it you want? What do you want for yourself? What do you want for your child? What do you want for your classroom? And, ask yourself that, give yourself some sort of a picture representation of it, even if you have to draw it cartoon and put it someplace where you can see it so that it reminds you, right, that's the thing, because the other stuff will come up. And if we keep our eye on the prize and keep moving towards that, we are much more likely to get there and much more likely to find the thing. Sometimes this shifts. I'm going to be honest. Sometimes you go, no, okay, I thought that was it, but actually it's over here. But if you're moving towards this, you will be quicker at recognizing, yes, that's what I want. Keeping it real, there was a period of time when I started ABA and I was one of those parents that I was like, I want my child to recover. I want for my child to have no, I don't want him to, have any kind of difficulty in his life. And, I want him to look like he has no difficulty. I want him to have no difficulty. And guess what? I still want all of those things for him. But along the way, I also realized what I really want is for my child to be happy. That's what I really, really want. Now, is it adjacent to those things? Absolutely. And in working towards that one, we found the other, and we're able to take the benefits of both. But I think it's important that we know what the prize is and move towards it. That's where we all need to be. And then you know, is this person helping me or not? Because if they're not helping you, I'm not even saying kick them all the way out of your life, but just ask them to step to the curb, because your bus is going someplace and you don't have room for passengers that are not going to help you to get there, right? Who are giving you directions to some other place. It's like having a separate ways running saying, no, we're going over here when you're trying to go here. We don't need that. Okay, so with that in mind, the things that we have on the show this morning, and I'm already running late, and hopefully our expert is still with us. We have a wonderful autism expert, Jessica Ploeg-Fragola. Pretty sure I'm slaughtering her name. We'll find out. She's going to be with us to answer some of the questions that you guys have written in that we haven't been able to get to yet. And then a little bit later in the hour, we're going to have a wonderful guest, Stephen Clark. He is the host of Cyber Timebite. It's a podcast. We're going to talk with him about that and how that came to be and more. And hopefully we're going to have time for our mindfulness moment and for questions. Excuse me, now I'm going to have the hiccups. That's going to be great. We're about to take a break anyway. But questions that you guys have written into us. So, excuse me, please stick with us. We're going to be right back after these messages with Jessica Ploeg-Fragola.
Do you provide care services to someone with autism? Recently, more and more children are being diagnosed with the condition and getting the support they need as awareness grows. But what happens to these children as they grow up? It's estimated that over 500,000 youth with autism will turn 18 in the next decade, and they'll be faced with a very difficult reality. As children with autism grow up, their services start to disappear or become very difficult to access. Things like medical care, mental health counseling, vocational training, and more. All services that are still desperately needed. The loss of support that youth with autism face as they grow up is so severe that it's referred to in the autism community as falling off a cliff. Adults with autism need the same level of support they had as children to avoid falling off the services cliff. Introducing Skills Living, the web-based software designed specifically to help transitioning youth and adults with autism so they can avoid the cliff and instead fly to success. With Skills Living, help your learner with autism develop the skills they need in all the critical areas of adult life, including self-control, planning, and problem-solving, effective communication, performing life skill tasks for independent living, acquiring and maintaining employment or other meaningful activities, developing and maintaining social skills and relationships, accessing transportation and public services, and being safe. Skills Living includes a comprehensive assessment, a data collection mobile app, behavior intervention plan builder, and automatic progress reporting. It also provides a complete curriculum addressing 16 key areas spanning the entire range of functioning adulthood. Skills Living is easy to use and can be implemented by schools, parents, and autism service providers. Call or click today for your free demo and see how Skills Living can help your learner with autism avoid the cliff and instead reach their fullest potential. Skills Living. Wish, learn, become.
Hey guys, for the month of September, I figured I'd show you guys how to make a task completion chart to help your kids get through the hardest parts of the day. Parents have been writing into our host, Shannon Penrod, the hardest parts of the day are waking up in the morning, after school, and getting ready for bed. Please keep in mind you can always modify the task completion chart to focus on the skills that your family needs most. The template we'll be using today to make the task completion chart you can find at facebook.com/autism-live. All right, let's get to it. The materials you'll be needing are the template, cardstock, scissors, hole puncher, glue, pipe cleaner, Velcro, and photos or images. We find it more reinforcing for kids if you use images of themselves doing the task that you're trying to get them to complete. So what I have here to start off are photos of myself doing all the tasks that we're going to add to our task completion chart today. The first step you're going to be doing is printing the template from facebook.com/autism-live. I have it here, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim out the top. We don't need that, that's just totally excess. Now that I trim my 3 templates, I'm going to label each one with a different part of the day that we're focusing on, such as waking up, after school, and getting ready for bed. Now that I finished labeling the templates with the appropriate time of the day, I'm going to attach the photos that go with it. For bedtime, the tasks I chose were getting ready for school, putting away toys, putting on pajamas, and brushing teeth. Now repeat this for all the rest of the day. Now that I've added the photos to the template, I am taking this along with my heavy cardstock to hold all my tokens. I'm going to line them up and make 3 hole punches. I'm going to take this pipe cleaner and attach the pages together with it. We're almost done putting this together. Next, I'm going to take my Velcro. I'm going to put them underneath each picture. And then I'm going to add 4 on the very edge too. Now that I've attached the rough side of the Velcro to the template, now I'm going to take the softer side and add these to the tokens. You can use whatever you want for the tokens, whatever your child finds reinforcing. They could be stickers, images, spacemen, Pokemon, whatever they like. Before you use your task completion chart, it's really important that you do a preference assessment to see what your child finds reinforcing that day. Once you have that established, then you can tell them the rule for how this task completion chart works. So every time they get one of their tasks completed, they add a token to it. And the way the task completion chart functions is like a token economy. So after they put a token under each one of these tasks, they can trade it in for their reinforcer for the day. Now that you've made your task completion chart, hopefully your child will be able to use it on a daily basis and help them through those difficult times of the day. Well, until next time, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. I love this part of the show where we welcome an autism expert to answer your questions. Today, we have the fabulous Jessica Ploeg, and she is here with us. Jessie, welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm glad to be here.
We're thrilled to have you on. And tell us what your title is at CARD and which office you work out and what you do.
Okay, I am a clinical manager at CARD. I work in Auburn, California. We have a beautiful little office up here in the foothills of the Sierras. I am overseeing our BCBAs here, working with clients, working with our staff as they try to grow towards becoming BCBAs themselves. It's a really great job. I've been doing this for 18 years.
Wow.
I know. And I was drug into this from my own child who has autism, who's now 24.
Wow. Well, that's a pretty amazing story. And I'm so grateful that someone like you, because you must be informed about so many things that help not only the BCBAs, but the families. What a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited that you're here with us today, and I'm going to start throwing questions at you. So, the first one, our high schooler has many short friendships that fizz. He tries so very hard. It's tough to ask about this portion of his school day, but without info, we don't know what to work on or what we need to work on. Do you have any ideas? The young man is amazing.
Yeah, I do. So I think they definitely, without knowing what's going on, nobody knows how to treat the problem, right? And that's often a really difficult thing when you have a child who or a young adult who is going to school and they don't have support and they're not telling you what's happening and you don't know what's happening. It's very difficult to know where to start. And so the best advice I can give is that you have to try to figure out what is happening with his social relationships and with his peers. One of the places they could start is talking to teaching staff for some insight. But I'd also ask the school, I'm not sure if this young man has a IEP or not, but if he has a diagnosis of autism, I would ask the school to assess the problem. It's really important, I think, whether your child needs a lot of supports or very little supports to understand what their rights are as far as the IEP process and special education. A lot of people think special education is only for academics, But if he's having difficulties with social skills, you could ask for an assessment and then hold a meeting with the school district to see what they've come up with. But somebody has to get in there and be able to see it. If he has an ABA company that's working with him, then they could also possibly go to do some observations at the school or even outside of the school with peers. But you need to be able to see what's happening and where things might be going wrong so that you can help him. Without knowing, I can't really give advice on what they should do other than trying to find out what's happening so they can set up an intervention.
Absolutely. I think a lot of times as parents, we're like, well, what do we do? And what I love is when the experts say to us, well, we have to look at it first. And the comparison that I always have for families is, can you imagine if your car, something was going on with your car, let's say you had a little shimmy and you're like, I don't know what that is, but fix it, right? You want the expert to fix it. If you were to drive your car to a garage and say to somebody, there's a shimmy, I want you to fix it. And if the expert said, well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this, and this off, and we're going to replace those, you would be like, whoa, aren't you going to take it for a test drive and see what it is first so that you can diagnose what's happening before you start working on it? It's the same thing with our kids. So somebody's got to get in there and look at it. Wonderful. Okay, from the next question, which came to us from Australia, they say, I found your program on YouTube, and this is how I started to follow you due to the time difference. I love the program, love you and Dr. Doreen. I'm so grateful to you guys. And then they get to their question. My boy, and thank you for that, and we love you too. My boy is 3 years and 2 months. I do ABA at home 20 hours a week. The only ABA therapist of the state lives on a different city, so we arranged to do clinic on Skype, and she then sends me the new programs. I'm exhausted and finding difficult to keep my son interested in rewards. The only things that are effectively work to make him work throughout the session without running away are food and YouTube videos. So I take the phone back in between programs. The therapist said that the videos could make him uninterested in anything else at all. I'm trying to avoid to work with the phone, but it's hard even to get him to sit voluntarily without it. Any advice on how to keep him engaged on ABA? And is it bad to use videos sometimes? And she says, thanks.
I love this question because it's something that a lot of families are facing. But first of all, if this mom is actually running ABA programs, kudos. That's really hard to do. Sounds like she's doing a lot with some remote support possibly. But I love this question because there's so many, it's not just kids with autism, it's kids today that they're really hooked on these electronic games and videos. And there's a lot of parents, I think, that are struggling with, how healthy is this, right? But kids with autism seem to get a little extra hooked, right? So some families are actually deciding to go just electronic free. And then some are letting them have lots of access and some trying to limit it. But I know that it's a really big, big struggle. I think of my own, I always think back to my own son where we use video games as reinforcers. And there's times where I think if I could time travel back, I might have really eliminated those because they became such an obsession. And we had so many programs and behavior plans around video game behavior. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to give the best answer because it's really family specific. You could decide to go electronic free. A lot of people are advocating for that, especially for people with autism, because they're when you have your face in a screen, you're not interacting with the environment and people, and it can become very obsessive. And then other people are just really limiting them to just when you earn them. So I think if you do keep electronics in his life, then you should limit them and only use them as rewards during the program. I think you have to be very careful, just like any parent, even if they don't have autism, of using videos and games to keep them quiet and behaved. We don't want them to have that in order to behave. They should be able to have free time without them and be able to have appropriate behavior. We want to teach that. You have to be really careful with them and make sure that they're earning them. I would definitely talk with your current sounds like there might be an ABA consultant in there. I couldn't tell from the question, but or therapist to come up with some ideas how to eliminate them or to limit the use of them, and possibly not just using them for skill building where you come down and sit down and just work and then you get your videos or YouTube, but you actually have to have appropriate behavior during downtime and learn how to have leisure time without them, learn how to have appropriate behavior without a video game or YouTube in your hand.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I
Absolutely.
could go on and on about this one and around because it really is an issue that I think all parents are dealing with right now.
I think it's really hard when parents write in and they go, well, there's only this or these two things that are reinforcing to my child, because then this becomes this cycle that, you know, that now we're trapped in. And that idea of, well, we're going to teach something else to the child that right now isn't reinforcing, but will be reinforcing to them later on, because it ends up that these are the same families often that say, oh, I don't want you to teach play skills. I want you to just, I want him to speak and I want him to be able to read, right? But the reason why we need to teach play skills is so that eventually they find that reinforcing so that you can have them do something else. So I think it would be interesting to look at what else needs to be taught to him so that he knows how to have leisure time without those things. It will be tough at first.
And the one thing that I think is really important to remember, because even my own son, he is older, video games weren't always around. And with working with children for so long, even when I started as a therapist myself, like a tutor myself, we didn't have electronics and we didn't have YouTube and people didn't have the fancy phones. And if you think about it, if you take all that stuff away, there will be other reinforcers. Other things will become powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think people get afraid to take them away because they're so powerful. But if they did disappear, it's human nature. They'll find something else.
Absolutely. I'm going to move on to the last question because we're running out of time. My fault, not yours. What are some ways I can teach my 5-year-old to self-regulate at school? It's hard. I'm not there. I can't actually see what's happening. But the teacher says he melts down at least once a day. Very similar to the different problem, but the mom in the first question, I'm not at school. I can't see what's happening. They tell me this, but I don't really know. So how can we teach him to self-regulate?
This is exactly like the first one where you have to get in and see it. You need to request from the school district that they possibly do a functional behavior assessment, do some assessments to figure out why they're happening. Because without knowing why, nobody can help. Because once you know why, then we can figure out what do we need to teach them how to do as far as coping skills. Because we don't know if it's a certain time of day and they're overwhelmed with noise, or there's an academic concept that's too difficult for them. I mean, there could be so many different reasons for this to be happening. And then once you find out the why, then you can start implementing a plan of how to help them self-regulate.
Yeah.
And the one thing I would say is that it's not always so simple as just finding out the why and what they need to do. There's also the teaching of it. And with a lot of our kids, we can teach them coping strategies, but they sometimes need an entire behavior intervention plan to be able to use those.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So immediate request in writing that you want to have somebody looking at this behavior. They should have somebody at the school who can do that for you. But if they don't, and if you're working with an ABA provider, ask that your ABA provider can go in the classroom and look at the behavior and help to create potentially a behavior intervention plan. Jessie, this has been so lovely. We have to have you back. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing your expertise. And I'm so glad that those families up in Auburn have you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you. You have a good weekend, okay?
You too.
All right, bye-bye. She was lovely, but we are pressed for time here because we're going to be late for our next guest. So we're going to go right to break, and we're going to come back with the wonderful Stephen Clark, who is the host of Cyber Timebite podcast. Stick with us.
What is autism?
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 What is autism? I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to, just,
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism,
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them.
Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
it's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love.
The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very next guest is Stephen Clark. He is the host and creator of a podcast called Cyber Timebite Podcast. So, Stephen, welcome to the show.
Hello, how's everyone doing today? How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. So we want to know everything about this, and we want to be able to tell people where to find it. I understand that it's already, you've been doing this for more than a year, and it's almost 70 episodes strong.
It's pretty crazy, you know, doing this for 70 episodes in a year. I mean, like, I feel like I reached the apex, I feel like, of my podcast. I thought I would not make it to even 70 or even past a year, you know. But,
what made you start doing this?
Well, it's a funny backstory, and I'll try to keep it short. So I do another podcast called Adventure Time Guys, and I've been doing that one for 4 years. And I do it with another friend I have who lives in Ohio. His name is Cameron, and we were interviewing people on that show every once in a while, not all the time like I do on this podcast, but we used to do that every once in a while. And so when we started doing that, I thought it'd be a smart idea to start up like a radio station on this website called radio.co. And I started that up, and Cyber Timebite was supposed to be one of the shows on that lineup, and it ended up not working, and so I closed the station down, and I brought Cyber Timebite back up, and I made it into the podcast that it is today. Wonderful. And so, what gets discussed on Cyber Timebite? So it's a weekly. It comes out every Wednesday, and I interview someone of things I'm interested in. And what are the things that I understand you have a pretty very interesting, like you love babies and dragons, or baby dragons. No. That's just the description because I was just trying to be funny. Oh, okay. I thought that was real. I was like, he loves babies and dragons. So what do you love, Stephen? What are you talking about on this show? So so in reality on the podcast, yes, I have cosplayers on my show, which is like people dress up as characters and go to these conventions, which I like doing, and I bring people from those, I bring them on the podcast, and I bring them on to talk to them about how they started and why they love it and everything under that sort of umbrella right there. And since I'm a huge wrestling fan, I sometimes have wrestlers on there or fans of wrestling on there, and basically everyone who is basically in the same kind of fandoms I am, and they just extreme it up to extreme levels, and I just bring them on and I let them talk about it and let them express themselves.
And
I try to be that open book of information. You know what I mean?
I do. What I think is incredible, because I know a little bit about how much it takes, how much energy it takes to pump out a weekly show. It takes a lot of energy, and it takes a lot of perseverance and getting a guest and having them agree to be on it. I mean, it takes a lot of organization. You got to be motivated to do this. I've had lots of friends who have said, oh, you know, we've had shows here on Autism Live where we've given time to organizations, and they say the same thing. This is a lot of work to put this together, to put an hour together. So how are you getting your guests? Is it just you working on this, or do you have help?
It's actually, most of the time it's just me. It's just me and my own that are getting everyone, because it's sometimes some deep digging. I mean, I sometimes gotta go for Twitter, I gotta go for Facebook, I gotta go through email. I just gotta go through like all these sort of resources sometimes, and sometimes even dig deeper than a regular resource, like other things I never even heard of to get some people, and it just sometimes takes forever, but eventually I get them and I bring them on the podcast, and like I said, it's mainly just me. I don't really have like a guy who.
Right, you're doing the work.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And we should say that this podcast is available at Cyber Timebite. It's available on Apple Podcasts, and it's listed under comedy. So if you're looking for everybody knows iTunes is splitting up, but the podcasts are staying with the podcast. So look under the category of comedy, and you can find Cyber Timebite there. Now, is it a free download?
Yes, it's you can find it on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, anything, pretty much anywhere where you can get your grubby podcast hands on.
And we need you to consult, because I don't know what a lot of those things are. So maybe our podcast needs to be on all of those. But so is this your main job, Stephen, or do you do other things as well?
Man, I wish it was my main job.
Well, maybe it can be. Well,
that'd be really cool.
Well, but that's a whole other, set of work, and finding sponsors or a sponsor, or, I mean, there are podcast people who make that work and make that happen. But that's a whole lot of other work that's aside from getting the guests. So it's hard. It's really, really hard. But do you work outside of doing this?
Yeah, I actually work at a grocery store in my local area, and I do I bag people's groceries and I bring in the carts. That's all I really do. I mean, that's my job that I actually do.
That's an important job. The wheels at the store don't work if those things don't happen. But I hope that as you grow this podcast and show people your consistency, that maybe you will be able to get sponsors, and someday you'll be telling me this is your sole job, and I'll be asking you how to do it. So again, it's called Cyber Timebite, and it's listed under comedy on Apple Podcasts. And is there a place where do you have a website for the podcast as well?
Yeah, the main resource where people can find me is that you can find me on Facebook at Cyber Timebite. Follow me on Twitter at NostalgiaVamp, which is my personal Twitter. And then I also have merchandise. I have shirts and mugs and whatever.
You got merch. You've got
for the
merch.
podcast.
We need merch, Traven. We need merch. Okay, so that's wonderful.
If you want to get that, it's on redbubble.com.
What is that again? What.com?
Redbubble.com.
Redbubble.com. Okay. So we can get the Cyber Timebite merch there. That's just awesome. See, you're giving me all kinds of ideas. So people should tune in. Who's your guest next Wednesday?
Next Wednesday? Let's see.
Oh, I'm putting you. How about who was your guest yesterday?
Oh, my guest. Well, my recent upload was Mike Freeland from the Front Row Material podcast. He's a wrestling podcast, and he was my latest upload as of right now.
So if there are wrestling fans, they should go to Apple Podcasts, download it, and listen to your conversation with him. It's available now.
Yeah, it can be wrestling fans, anyone. I mean, like, my podcast is open to pretty much anyone. I mean, like, I'm not trying to center myself, down a single path. I mean, like, anyone can listen.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Stephen, I wish you nothing but the best. Please keep us posted on how it goes, and good luck. And hopefully we've let some other people know about your podcast.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Hey, thank you.
So super fun. And I know a lot of you out there have kiddos, or maybe you're thinking about doing a podcast, or you have a podcast. We would be very interested to talk with you. We just did with Stephen. So what a wonderful thing. All right. We don't really have time to take a break, so I'm not going to take a break, but I'm going to squeeze in here. I'm just going to let you guys, I'm going to let you know that there's a bunch of stuff, and we're going to talk more about these things tomorrow. Oh, I know. I was supposed to talk about everybody that has, you guys have been having quite the conversation in YouTube. I kind of want to just go sit in the room in YouTube and listen to you guys. Can I say that? Want to say hi to S Shark Good and DC the Purple Diva, and Tiago, who's been joining us from Brazil. And I love how you guys are helping each other with different things. I want to say to Tiago that I know that in some countries getting therapy, I mean, it's expensive everywhere, but in some countries there's not funding sources for it. I do want to let you know that there are some ways that you can make it less expensive, that we have families that for years here in the United States, before there was funding, if you have a curriculum and if you have a way to train people to be able to do ABA, then you've got the pieces, right, that you can put together. And one of the things that the Center for Autism and Related Disorders decided to do, because they were like, we have answers, we're not able to get to those people, what can we give them? So the CARD curriculum is what is the basis of skills. We talk about skills here, and if you go to skillsforautism.com, you can sign up for one child or as many children. We have schools that use it, and it has the whole CARD curriculum, and then they take an assessment, and then it's tailored just to them, and it recommends this lesson for this individual because they need to learn this skill. And then the side piece to that is IBT, the Institute for Behavioral Training, which has video training to help people to become therapists. And it's for people, there are BCBAs, they can take additional training for people who want to become registered behavior technicians, board certified autism technicians. There's even a segment for parents that's training for parents, and another segment that's just for training teachers. Each of the trainings is sold individually, and they range from, I think, $7.50 to the most expensive one is $30, and it's a really comprehensive one. So I really encourage you to take a look and see if you're needing to train people, there's no less expensive way to do it, and it's really high quality training. I've done the training. It's pretty remarkable. And I also want to reflect on that Dina said it's really hard to watch our kids be isolated by other children. It is, and I want to encourage you not to watch that. I want to encourage you to go to whoever you have to go to. We've seen at schools where they put a buddy bench in place, if it's an elementary school, and anybody who's feeling alone goes and sits on the buddy bench, and that signals all of the kids who are a little bit more socially savvy that somebody needs to go and buddy up with that person. There are clubs that they have for kids that are, from like 4th grade up, to be paired with someone. So when you're out on the playground, that they have somebody who is specifically another student who's specifically assigned to help and be a buffer and make sure that they're not being isolated. There are things to do, and they should know at your child's school, and if they don't, We have lots of resources for you. Write to me. Let's get it so that your child is not isolated. So one quick mindfulness moment. We're already over, but I'm going to go there for just a second, Traven. That, you know, we started the show talking about what's hard and where's the prize, the thing that you want to keep your eyes on. And if we simply, every day, I always talk about the 3 breaths. I know we're supposed to be getting further, right, to be able to meditate for a whole hour, because I'm told that it's the promised land and I want to get us there. But if we start someplace, start with 3 breaths. And in that breath, you inhale and you exhale. And different people like to say different meditative things. But, you know, sometimes they say, on the inhale, they'll say something like, let go. Some people like to say, let God, or let the universe, or let whatever when they're letting go on the exhale. But you can pick the thing that you're putting your prize on. So if the thing that you're focusing on, the picture that was always in my head was my son in a cap and gown graduating from something. And so I would inhale and I would see that in my head, right? I would see it so clearly. And then when I would exhale, I would let go of anything that wasn't to do with that. I hope that today, if you find 3 deep breaths to inhale the picture of where you're getting to and exhale everything that's in your way. Inhale the picture of all the things that you're looking for, your big prize, the direction you're going in, and exhale everything that's in your way. And I got to tell you, I think if you just do it for 3 breaths, I think it changes the day. I think if you can do that on a regular basis, I think it changes everything. But I adore you all. I have to tell you about what's happening the rest of the week. So tomorrow on the show, Jeanette Magaro is going to be with us. She's author of this wonderful book, My Life with Gary. Gary is not who you think. You believe me, Gary is not who you think. Make sure that you tune in tomorrow so that you can hear. She is also co-host of a program called Simply Social Stories, because My Life with Gary is a social story. So that's going to be tomorrow. Nancy Allspot Jackson is with me. And tomorrow is the day that I go completely bonkers telling you about AutFest. It's scheduled. I'm going to fill you in on the amazing, amazing, amazing show that I saw at AutFest. You need to see me lose my you-know-what completely. So until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.